What's up, YouTube? Brett Hoover from Rants here. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave that comment down below. All right, so what can I say about this story? Peter Dinklage, you pull the ladder up once you make it. That kind of pisses me off to a certain extent. And look, I feel like the guy has, he's looking at this from a specific, particular viewpoint and one that I respect. Hey, he has to go through this. He has to, he's dealt with dwarfism his entire life. And he's sensitive to, characterizations of it. And I totally get that. Totally get that. But at the same time, this is a man who played in Elf. And everything, whether it be Game of Thrones or Elf, he has always, I don't know how many dwarf jokes he has made over his his time on screen. And he doesn't, I guess, feel like a lot of that is ridiculing. I feel like his portrayal in Elf, there was going to be anything that was going to be insulting, um, to his community, it would be that. Uh, but apparently, he feels like Snow White, even though he got the complete depiction of the dwarves in Snow White completely and totally wrong. He said they lived in caves, and they didn't live in caves; lived in a cottage. And I think he was mad because they were mining, but that's kind of the way it is in literature, and how they were portrayed. I mean, that is a fairy tale. It is a fairy tale, and he's like, well, it should be changed for 2021 standards. Totally cool with Snow White, whose skin was as white as snow, being played by a Latino actress. That's cool with him, but you know, he wants to get those the actors who played the seven dwarves. He wants to get them fired, and that's what he's done. And now they got Disney right up here talking about Disney responds to Peter Dinklage's Snow White outrage. We're consulting with dwarfism community. Well, that's probably a good idea. Probably a good idea to do anyways. But at the same time, guys, this is a fairy tale. And look, if you can't have Lord of the Rings, you can't have Lord of the Rings with the dwarves in Lord of the Rings doing the exact same thing, and no one's having a big outcry about that. I haven't heard Peter Dinklage say a dang thing about that, but yet he's upset with Snow White. I feel like that's low hanging fruit, Peter Dinklage, and I'm not meaning that in any kind of uh, uh, joking way. I'm meaning that you are literally going for something that you think is, well, I can attack this Disney film because that's not that big. No one's probably going to go watch that anyways. But I'm going to, not say anything about, I don't know, Lord of the freaking Rings, the Hobbit movies, all of that. Where was Peter Dinklage back then? Where's Peter Dinklage back then? Um, you know, he just automatically, yeah, I feel like a lot of these actors, they open up their mouths and they don't really think about what they're saying in a lot of ways. And I think that's where Peter Dinklage is right now in his career. He's playing Serrano or whatever the name that is. And, you know, it looks like a garbage movie. I don't know. The story is fairly decent, but I don't know about this movie. It already looks pretty crappy. Um, but yeah, I mean, this guy literally um, got his career off and running playing movies like Elf. And it kind of, and even on Game of Thrones, like I said, with all the dwarf jokes, he's made it. He's made it his career doing these things, and he's like, "Have I not done enough for my soapbox?" Well, really, you kind of did when you were playing Tyrion Lannister. You opened up the door probably for the guys that were going to play in Snow White. and then you close that door for whatever reason because you said you're insulted by it. And hey, if you're insulted by it, all power to you. But is it worth getting these guys fired over? I mean, is it worth them not having the same shots that you have? I think it's a pretty messed up situation. I feel like Peter Dinklage does not speak for everybody. I think they do need to consult the dwarfism community. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But I think they should do that and not just compare it to Peter Dinklage's view of things. I feel like that's one actor, that's one view of things. You're not going to be able to please everybody because there was already somebody else that was a famous person that as that also suffers from dwarfism, and he come out and he said that he thought it was perfectly fine. So I mean, you cancel it because one guy says that he's offended by it. He even got the story wrong. So I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, Peter Dinklage doesn't even know what he's talking about when he is even pissed off at this story in the first place. Makes no sense to me. I I will say I lost a lot of respect for him, and I do that with any actor that comes out there and that pulls the ladder up, because that's really kind of the way Peter Dinklage. It feels like he's really done. Feels like he's pulled the ladder up where no one who suffers from dwarfism is going to be able to ever get a serious role in Hollywood anymore because they're going to be worried about portrayals. They're going to be worried about portrayals of it now, especially if it's in the fantasy realm. If it's in the fantasy realm, you might as well forget it. They'll never do that ever again, ever. I remember in the newest Leprechaun movie, they had well, I mean, just all those Leprechaun movies. You've had famous people who suffer from dwarfism, and they've actually been able to make careers and have been able to be successful and beloved. And then you've got somebody like Peter Dinklage who's like, hey, you can't do this because I'm personally offended by it. I think that's pretty messed up. I think that's pretty messed up on his part. I feel like those that came before him kind of understood the hardships when it came to, them being able to break into Hollywood careers. And they had found their way in a lot of ways, only for Peter Dinklage to now completely ruin it for all of them. So, you know what, Peter Dinklage, I hope you feel great about yourself. You have literally pulled the ladder up. You have really showed your true colors, and you've all done it in a very, very progressive stance. I mean, you gotta love that progressive stance when he's made his entire living off of the same thing that he is complaining about when it comes to Snow White. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm not gonna say it disappoints me. It disappoints me in him because I thought he had a garbage take when it come to the end of Game of Thrones. When he spoke up and he said, "Well, you can't please everybody" and things like that. Well, he's probably right. He might should take his own words when it came um, to to this. I mean, you can't please everybody. He could have gave his take and let it be, but then he brought it up. He made this a point that he wanted to speak about, and now, like I said, he's got people fired, and he's really stopped anybody who suffers from dwarfism really going to get able to get a hold in Hollywood after this, thanks to him, thanks to his progressive mentality. So progressive of you. That's the thing about all this woke nonsense. It's not progressivism, it's regressivism. I know that's kind of like a silly way to put it, but it's kind of true. It's like how do we stop disenfranchised people from, I don't know, um, being able to get in Hollywood? We'll call it progressivism, and we'll say that they can't play any role that has to do with them actually. I don't know whether you're in a wheelchair or whether you're in a whether you suffer from dwarfism. I mean, that is you're not going to be able to play those roles, especially if it's in a fantasy realm of any kind of way, because you don't want to offend somebody like Peter Dinklage. I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely crazy. Peter Dinklage is very, 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 very disappointed with you about this one. It's just sad. Snow White. Look, Snow White film was going to be garbage anyway. It truly was. No one was going to go see that. No one's going to go be excited about that film. That film sounds like trash. Anyways, like I mean, it's so woke that it's just, ugh. But that's Disney for you. Live action. They need to stop with these live action films, anyways, based off of really something that's actually good. Um, that would be that would be progressive. Stop making live action Disney films. There you go. Progressivism at its best. Progressivism that I can get behind. Because the originals are good enough. They don't need live action versions. Stop trying to money grab every little classic that you have, Disney. Try to make some original for once. Maybe that's kind of what Peter Dinklage is saying. Make something new, make something original. If you want to do that, do it. But don't ruin classics with live actions. They've always been terrible. They'll always be terrible. They'll never live up to the original. Period. Anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think. Do you feel like Peter Dinklage maybe took it a step too far this time when it come to putting his take out there when it come to this, or do you feel like the producers and the studio should have talked to the dwarfism community, which I actually think they should have, instead of worrying about what Peter Dinklage has to say, and talk to them before they make some decision to change it completely and totally. Because like I said, I feel like it's pulling the ladder up from other people who have dwarfism and aren't going to be able to make it into Hollywood, especially in fantasy genres, simply because of one man's view on things. It's my opinion on it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching. Y'all take care.